My name is Ashley Thompson, and at 32 years old, I thought I had secured my dream job as Director of Product Innovation at GrowthTech Solutions. 5 years of dedication, countless late nights, and successful product launches all led to that quarterly live stream with 50,000 viewers watching. I never imagined my career there would end with Marcus, our egotistical CEO, grabbing the microphone from my hands mid-presentation and saying those words that still echo in my mind. "You are done. You are fired." What I could never have predicted was getting a call from Howard, our chairman, the very next morning. Before I dive into how it all unfolded, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe button if you have ever witnessed workplace drama unfold in real time. Trust me, you will want to stick around for what happened next. I graduated with an MBA from Stanford University 8 years ago with honors and big dreams. My early career was marked by success at 2 smaller tech startups, where I helped develop products that increased revenue by over 30%. When a recruiter contacted me about an opportunity at GrowthTech Solutions, I was intrigued but cautious. The interview process was rigorous, 6 rounds including a panel interview and a product strategy presentation. I remember feeling an immediate connection to the company mission, innovative solutions for an interconnected world. GrowthTech had a reputation for cutting-edge technology and a collaborative culture. At least, that was the public image. The sprawling campus in Silicon Valley featured open workspaces, meditation rooms, and those classic tech perks like free gourmet lunches and game rooms. During my interview, everyone seemed passionate and engaged. The salary and equity package were competitive, and the opportunity to work with industry leaders was too good to pass up. I started as a senior product manager and quickly proved my value. Within 3 years, I had been promoted twice, eventually becoming the Director of Product Innovation, leading a team of 20 talented individuals. My office had glass walls overlooking the development floor, a symbol of the transparency I valued in leadership. Marcus Evans became CEO about a year after I joined. He was 45 tall with salt and pepper hair and possessed the kind of charismatic presence that commanded attention. He had a reputation as a visionary, but those who worked closely with him knew another side, narcissistic, quick to take credit, and brutally dismissive of ideas that were not his own. His leadership style involved public praise and private criticism, creating an environment where everyone walked on eggshells. Howard Reynolds, our chairman, was in his early 60s, rarely seen at the office except for board meetings and special events. Distinguished and reserved, he had built several successful tech companies and was respected throughout the industry. Most employees, including myself, had minimal interaction with him beyond formal company functions. Rachel Williams from marketing became my closest ally at GrowthTech. At 35, with a quick wit and strategic mind, she recognized patterns of behavior and leadership that others missed. She was the one who first pointed out how Marcus would rephrase my ideas and present them as his own in executive meetings. Then there was Bradley Cooper, Director of Strategic Partnerships and Marcus's undeniable favorite. At 38, he had been with the company since its founding and resented my rapid rise. Bradley had a habit of sending emails with subtle undermining comments and questioning my decisions in meetings, always with a smile that never reached his eyes. GrowthTech specialized in productivity and collaboration software, with our flagship product, ConnectSuite, used by over 3 million professionals worldwide. The company had been growing at 20% year over year, and rumors of acquisition talks were constantly circulating. Our quarterly live streams had become increasingly important for investor relations, with viewership growing from a few hundred to tens of thousands. In my 3rd year, I led the development of an AI integration that increased user engagement by 40%. Marcus presented it at a major tech conference, never mentioning my name or my team. When I raised the issue later, he dismissed my concerns with, "We win as a company, not as individuals, Ashley." That should have been my first real warning. As GrowthTech grew, so did the pressure. Targets became more ambitious, deadlines tighter. The board started pushing for greater innovation to position us for acquisition. Employees began noticing changes in the culture. The collaborative environment was slowly being replaced by competition and politics. Weekly all-hands meetings became stages for Marcus to highlight his vision, with less time for team contributions and questions. "We need to focus on growth at all costs," became his mantra. I noticed how he would review my team's presentations before company meetings, often removing slides that gave credit to individual contributors. Streamlining, he called it. I called it erasure. The quarterly live streams, originally meant to create transparency with customers and investors, evolved into highly produced showcases of Marcus's leadership, each one carefully scripted with minimal opportunity for authentic interaction. And it was during the preparation for our biggest live stream yet that the cracks began to show more clearly. The Nexus project began as a conversation at one of our innovation workshops. I had proposed a unified platform that would integrate all our existing products with a revolutionary user interface and advanced data analytics capabilities. When I first presented the concept to the executive team, Marcus looked bored, checking his phone throughout my presentation. "Interesting, but not groundbreaking," he said dismissively. "Let us table this for now and focus on incremental improvements to existing products." 3 weeks later, during a company all-hands meeting, Marcus unveiled his vision for the future of GrowthTech, a unified platform called Nexus that sounded remarkably identical to my proposal, down to the name I had suggested. When I caught his eye from the audience, he quickly added, building on some ideas from various team members. Rachel passed me a note. "Did he just steal your entire concept?" I just nodded, trying to maintain my composure. That pattern continued as Nexus gained traction. In meetings where I would present progress updates, Marcus would interrupt with, "Actually, what Ashley means island," or, "Let me clarify what we are really doing here." His reinterpretations often missed key technical details, but always positioned him as the visionary behind the project. Bradley became Marcus's enforcer. After one product review meeting, he approached my team lead, Jason. "Marcus feels the user interface is too complicated. He wants a complete redesign by Monday," Bradley said, though we were already 3 months into development with positive user testing results. When I confronted Bradley about going around me, his response was telling. I worked directly with Marcus on his vision for Nexus. Maybe if you aligned better with that vision, he would not need me to intervene. Rachel began documenting these incidents. "This is not normal, Ashley. This is systematic undermining," she told me over lunch one day. "I have seen this before at my previous company." It did not end well for the target. 6 months into Nexus development, Marcus suddenly announced a shortened timeline. "The board wants to see Nexus launch within 3 months. Not 6, he declared in an executive meeting. When I explained that this would require additional resources, he approved them verbally, but then Bradley mysteriously blocked the budget allocation. I scheduled a meeting with Marcus to address these issues directly. Sitting in his corner office with its panoramic view of the campus, I outlined my concerns professionally. "I feel there has been a breakdown in communication around Nexus," I began carefully. "My team is working nights and weekends to meet the accelerated timeline, but we keep facing roadblocks with resources and changing requirements." Marcus leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "Ashley, GrowthTech has given you tremendous opportunities. A leadership position at your age is rare, but leadership means adapting to changing priorities without complaint. If that is too difficult," he let the implication hang in the air. It was not a threat, not exactly, but the message was clear: fall in line, or face consequences. As GrowthTech's market position strengthened, Marcus became increasingly visible in industry publications and conferences. Bloomberg ran a profile calling him the next tech visionary, with a photo of him standing before a slide showing Nexus, my brainchild. The article mentioned his innovative approach and revolutionary vision without reference to the team behind it. Meanwhile, rumors about acquisition talks with Megatech Industries intensified. Twice, I noticed Marcus in deep conversation with their CEO at industry events, conversations that abruptly ended when others approached. Despite the challenges, I remained committed to Nexus and my team. We worked weekends, ordered midnight pizzas, and pushed through obstacles. The product was genuinely revolutionary, and I was proud of what we were creating regardless of who got the credit. Then came the financial discrepancies. While reviewing budget allocations for the next development phase, I noticed unusual expenses coded to the Nexus project items that had nothing to do with our work, consulting fees to companies I had never heard of, travel expenses for destinations we had no team members visiting, and hardware purchases that never arrived at our department. I brought my concerns to Diana, our CFO, showing her the spreadsheets I had compiled. "These are probably just coding errors," she said, barely glancing at my documentation. Accounting will sort it out. Focus on your deliverables, not on finance. Her dismissal seemed practiced, almost rehearsed. That evening, I shared my findings with Rachel in the empty office kitchen. This could be nothing, she said, lowering her voice despite us being alone, or it could be something serious. Either way, you need to be careful. Document everything, but be strategic about who you talk to and what you say. I spent the next few weeks proceeding carefully, gathering information while maintaining an outward focus on Nexus development. I created a separate encrypted folder on my personal device where I stored screenshots, emails, and meeting notes. Not because I was planning anything specific, but because Rachel's warning had struck a chord. Something felt wrong, and my instincts, which had served me well throughout my career, were screaming caution. The tension continued to build as we approached the all-important quarterly livestream where Nexus would be unveiled to the public for the first time. What I did not realize was that this event would become a turning point not just for the project, but for my entire career at GrowthTech. 2 weeks before the quarterly livestream, Marcus called a planning meeting in the main conference room. The marketing team, technical leads, and key executives gathered around the polished table as he paced at the front, energy radiating from him like a physical force. This is our biggest audience yet. 50,000 viewers minimum, including major investors and industry analysts, Marcus announced, projecting slides, showing growing viewership metrics. We need to make a statement about GrowthTech's future. Then unexpectedly he turned to me. Ashley, I want you front and center for the Nexus demonstration. This is your project to present. The room fell silent. After months of Marcus positioning himself as the visionary behind Nexus, this sudden spotlight felt suspicious. Rachel caught my eye from across the table, her slight head tilt communicating her own confusion. Thank you, Marcus. I would be happy to present Nexus. I replied professionally, even as my mind raced with questions about his motivation. After the meeting, Bradley cornered me by the elevator. Quite the vote of confidence from Marcus, he set his tone, suggesting anything but congratulations. Just remember whose company this is when you are in front of all those viewers. The timing of this opportunity felt strategic, particularly with the acquisition rumors intensifying. Just that morning, I had overheard Diana mentioning final valuation discussions on a phone call before she noticed me, and quickly ended the conversation. For the next week, I worked with my team to develop a comprehensive presentation. We created demos highlighting Nexus's innovative features, prepared data visualizations showing projected impact, and crafted a narrative that balanced technical details with business benefits. My team stayed late into the evenings, ordering dinner to the conference room, where we rehearsed and refined our approach. 3 days before the live stream, Marcus sent an email at 11:30 at night. Significant changes needed to the Nexus presentation. See attached revisions. Must be implemented before Thursday rehearsal. His revisions substantially altered the narrative, emphasizing executive vision and downplaying the collaborative development process. He had removed slides showing team contributions and added several that positioned Nexus as a direct extension of his previous innovations. I spent the night reworking the presentation, finding subtle ways to maintain the integrity of our work while accommodating Marcus's changes. By morning, I had a version that I hoped would satisfy him while still giving appropriate context for Nexus's development. That same day, while searching for some historical product documentation, I discovered a folder on our shared drive containing board presentation materials. I should not have had access to it, clearly, an IT permission error. Before reporting the issue, curiosity led me to open one document, a slide deck titled Nexus Acquisition Strategy. The deck outlined how Marcus planned to position Nexus as his brainchild to maximize the company's valuation and his personal compensation in an acquisition. One slide specifically noted, transition plan post-acquisition will streamline leadership, eliminating redundant innovation roles. My role was considered redundant. More concerning were slides showing financial projections that differed significantly from the ones we used internally. They showed revenue streams that seemed inflated, and cost structures that did not align with our actual development expenses. These were the same discrepancies I had noticed earlier now, appearing in official board documents. I closed the files and immediately called Stephanie, a lawyer friend, who specialized in corporate law, describing the situation without naming names. Document everything without using company resources, she advised. Forward key emails to a personal account, take photos of documents rather than screenshots on your work computer, and keep a detailed journal of conversations with dates and witnesses. What you are describing could potentially cross from unethical into illegal territory. That night, I created backup slides with accurate attribution and financial data, storing them in a separate presentation file that I could access if needed. I did not plan to use them without cause, but I wanted to be prepared. The next day, I met Rachel for coffee at a shop 2 blocks from the office. "If something happens during the live stream, I need you to be ready," I told her, sliding a USB drive across the table. "This contains the original presentation with accurate information. Just in case." In case of what Rachel asked, concern evident in her voice. "In case Marcus tries something that crosses a line," I replied. "Probably nothing but better safe than sorry." That afternoon, I had a brief, unexpected encounter with Howard Reynolds. I was reviewing presentation notes in the hallway outside the boardroom when the chairman emerged from a meeting. "Ms. Thompson," he acknowledged with a nod, "I understand you are presenting Nexus tomorrow." "Yes, sir," I replied, surprised he knew the details of the live stream agenda. "Interesting project," he said, studying me with an intensity that made me wonder how much he knew about the situation. "I look forward to watching." With that cryptic comment, he continued down the hallway. The night before the live stream, I finalized all materials and created secure backups. I reviewed my talking points until I could recite them in my sleep and prepared responses for potential questions. Despite the tension and suspicion surrounding the event, I felt a sense of pride in what my team had accomplished with Nexus. Regardless of office politics, the product itself was innovative and valuable. The morning of the live stream, I arrived at the office at 6 a.m. for technical checks and a final rehearsal. The marketing team had transformed our largest conference room into a makeshift studio with professional lighting, multiple cameras, and a backdrop featuring the GrowthTech logo. Technical staff scurried around adjusting equipment and testing connections. During the final sound check, I noticed Bradley in deep conversation with Marcus in the corner of the room. They spoke in hushed tones, with Bradley repeatedly showing something on his tablet that caused Marcus to nod with a satisfied expression. When they noticed me watching, Bradley quickly put the tablet away, and Marcus approached with an unusually broad smile. "All set for your big moment, Ashley?" he asked, placing a hand on my shoulder that felt more possessive than supportive. "Yes, everything is prepared," I replied, maintaining my professionalism despite the unease his touch triggered. "Excellent," he said, his smile not reaching his eyes. "Just stick to the approved slides and we will have a successful presentation." As the livestream start time approached, I changed into the outfit. I had carefully selected a navy blue blazer over a white blouse, professional but approachable. I applied a fresh coat of lipstick, took a deep breath, and reminded myself that regardless of office politics, this was an opportunity to showcase the incredible work my team had done. What I did not know then was that this would be my last presentation as Director of Product Innovation at GrowthTech Solutions, and that the next 60 minutes would change the trajectory of my career in ways I could never have anticipated. The live stream began precisely at 10 a.m. Pacific time. From the small monitor near my seat, I could see the viewer count rapidly climbing: 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. By the time Marcus stepped up to the branded podium, over 45,000 people were watching, a record for our quarterly updates. Marcus began with his standard introduction, polished to perfection after countless media appearances. "Welcome to GrowthTech's quarterly update, where innovation meets execution. I am Marcus Evans, CEO, and I'm excited to share the revolutionary developments our team has been working on." He spent the first 15 minutes highlighting company performance, revenue growth, and client acquisition statistics. The chat sidebar on the stream filled with comments from investors, customers, and industry watchers, most expressing enthusiasm about the company's trajectory. I waited in the wings, reviewing my notes one final time, confident in the presentation I had prepared despite the last-minute changes. And now Marcus announced for the moment many of you have been waiting for. Today we unveil the future of collaborative technology, a project that represents the culmination of GrowthTech's innovation philosophy. To present Nexus, please welcome our Director of Product Innovation, Ashley Thompson. I walked onto the set with practiced confidence, shaking Marcus's hand before taking position at the presentation station. The camera's red light blinked steadily, a reminder of the thousands watching my every move. "Thank you, Marcus." I began, my voice clear and steady. "Good morning, everyone. Today, I am thrilled to introduce Nexus, a unified platform that represents a fundamental shift in how teams collaborate and analyze data. I launched into the presentation, navigating through slides that showcase the elegant user interface, the powerful analytics engine, and the seamless integration capabilities. The viewer count had now surpassed 50,000, and the chat showed positive reactions to the initial demonstration. What sets Nexus apart is its adaptive learning system, I explained, showing a real-time demo of the feature. As you can see, the platform recognizes patterns in how teams work together and proactively suggests optimizations unique to each organization's workflow. I was about 10 minutes into my 20-minute segment when I noticed something unusual. Marcus had moved from his seat at the side of the stage and was now hovering near the edge of the camera frame. This was not part of the planned staging. Still, I continued professionally, moving to the next key feature demonstration. Our beta testers reported a 45% increase in project completion speed and a 60% improvement in cross-team collaboration, I said, displaying a graph that illustrated these metrics. These results reflect the dedication of our development team, who has worked tirelessly to. That was when Marcus stepped directly into the frame, interrupting me mid-sentence. He reached for the wireless microphone I was holding his movement, so unexpected that I momentarily froze. I think what Ashley is trying to say, he interjected, is that Nexus represents the vision I have been driving since founding GrowthTech. Confused, but trying to maintain professionalism, I attempted to continue. As I was explaining the collaborative effort behind Nexus Marcus cut me off again, this time his voice sharper. Actually, let me clarify something for our viewers. He turned to face the camera, directly positioning himself slightly in front of me. There seems to be some confusion about the development process here. The studio fell silent. Behind the cameras, I could see the technical team exchanging uncomfortable glances. Rachel, watching from the back of the room, had straightened in her chair, tension visible in her posture. Nexus is moving in a different direction than what is being presented today. Marcus continued, his tone increasingly dismissive. Some elements of the current demonstration do not align with the executive vision or the information being shared with our potential partners. I felt a chill run through me at the mention of potential partners, knowing he was referring to the acquisition talks. The chat sidebar was exploding with questions and confusion, viewers clearly sensing the unusual tension. Marcus, I said quietly, attempting to regain control of the situation, perhaps we should discuss this after the live stream. I am happy to address any concerns about the presentation. His face hardened, and that was when I knew something irreversible was about to happen. He turned to face me, the camera capturing his profile as he spoke. That will not be necessary, Ashley. You are done. You are fired. Security will escort you from the building immediately. The words hung in the air, so shocking that for a moment I thought I had misheard. 50,000 viewers had just witnessed my public execution. The chat erupted, comments scrolling too fast to read. Someone gasped audibly from behind the cameras. I stood there, microphone still half extended toward me, processing what had just happened. Years of education, professional accomplishments, and dedicated work, all culminating in this moment of public humiliation. Drawing on reserves of dignity I did not know I possessed, I simply nodded, placed my presentation remote on the table, and walked off camera. No outburst, no pleading, no scene. Just a professional exit, despite the unprecedented circumstances. Behind me, I could hear Marcus fumbling to continue the presentation, clearly unprepared to demonstrate the technical features I had been about to show. We will, move on to the next segment, he stammered, as the technical team scrambled to adjust the live stream agenda. In the preparation room, I gathered my personal items with shaking hands. My team members, who had been watching from another room, filed in their faces, showing shock and outrage. Ashley, what the hell just happened? Jason, my lead developer, asked, his voice low and intense. Apparently I have been fired, I replied, the reality of the situation still not fully registering. I need to go now. Please continue supporting Nexus. It is a good product regardless of today's events. As I finished speaking, Bradley appeared at the door with 2 security officers. Marcus has requested that you be escorted from the premises immediately, he said, not quite hiding his satisfaction. Company policy for terminated employees. With as much dignity as I could muster, I walked between the security guards through the open office area, where colleagues stared in stunned silence, some with live streams still playing on their monitors. No one spoke as I passed the shock of what they had just witnessed, rendering them speechless. I surrendered my badge at reception, signed the visitor log for the last time, and walked through the sliding glass doors into the bright California sunshine, my career at GrowthTech Solutions officially over after 5 years of dedication. For 20 minutes, I sat in my car in the GrowthTech parking lot, hands gripping the steering wheel, unable to process what had just happened. The air conditioning hummed softly as I stared at the building where, until 10 minutes ago, I had been a respected director. Now 50,000 people had witnessed my public firing. My phone buzzed constantly with notifications, but I could not bring myself to look at them yet. When I finally pulled out of the parking lot, the reality began to sink in. At a red light, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror and saw a woman I barely recognized, pale, shocked eyes wide with disbelief. The light turned green, but a car behind me had to honk before I noticed. By the time I reached my apartment, my professional composure had cracked. I closed the door behind me, kicked off my heels, and sank to the floor back against the wall. Then the emotions flooded in humiliation, so intense it felt physical anger that burned in my chest, and beneath it all a profound sense of injustice. 5 years, I whispered to my empty living room. 5 years of my life. My phone continued buzzing with incoming messages. Finally, I gathered the courage to look. Over 30 text messages from colleagues expressing shock and support. 15 missed calls. Hundreds of email notifications. And my social media accounts were exploding with activity from people who had witnessed the live stream. Rachel was the first person I called back. "Ashley, my God," she answered immediately. "Are you okay?" That was the most unprofessional thing I have ever seen in my entire career. "I honestly do not know if I am okay," I admitted, my voice catching. "Did that really just happen? Did Marcus really fire me in front of 50,000 people?" "Yes, he did, and the internet is on fire about it," Rachel replied. "GrowthTech drama is trending on Twitter. The recording has been taken down from the official channels, but people recorded it. Clips are everywhere." I opened my laptop with shaking hands and saw what she meant. Tech news sites were already running headlines. GrowthTech CEO fires executive during live presentation, and tech livestream meltdown, executive publicly terminated mid-presentation. The comment sections were a mix of outrage on my behalf and speculation about what had prompted such an extreme action. Some suggested I must have done something terrible to warrant public firing, while others condemned Marcus for unprofessional leadership. Both perspectives felt like additional cuts to my already wounded professional reputation. "What am I supposed to do now?" I asked Rachel the practical question, finally emerging through the emotional fog. "First, document everything while it is fresh in your mind," she advised. "Write down exactly what happened today and in the weeks leading up to it. Second, do not sign anything if HR contacts you without having a lawyer review it first." As we spoke, another call came in from Bradley. I declined it, but seconds later a text message appeared. "Ashley, truly sorry about how things unfolded today. If you need to discuss severance options, I can help facilitate that conversation." His faux sympathy felt like salt in the wound. My parents called next, having heard about the incident from a family friend who worked in tech. "Honey, we saw what happened. That man is a monster," my mother said, her protective instinct flaring even though I was 32 years old. "You need to talk to a lawyer immediately." By early evening, Rachel arrived at my apartment with takeout food and a bottle of wine. "You should not be alone tonight," she said, setting the bags on my kitchen counter. "And you need to eat something." We sat at my dining table picking at pad thai while discussing the potential fallout. "The company's legal team will be in damage control mode," Rachel explained, having gone through a similar situation at her previous company. "They will probably offer you a severance package with strict confidentiality clauses. Do not accept their first offer." "I keep thinking about my team," I said, pushing noodles around my plate. "What happens to Nexus now? What happens to the people who worked so hard on it?" "That is not your responsibility anymore," Rachel reminded me gently. "Your priority now has to be protecting yourself and your future." As we talked, emails arrived from recruiters at competing companies, some barely disguising their excitement at the possibility of poaching talent from GrowthTech amid the controversy. One message particularly caught my attention. Our CEO was watching the live stream and was appalled by your treatment. We would love to discuss opportunities that properly value your expertise. The live stream recording had been temporarily removed from GrowthTech's official channels, but as Rachel had mentioned, clips were circulating widely. In one video that had already garnered over 100,000 views, someone had edited together my professional presentation with Marcus's interruption and added captions analyzing his body language and tone. I spent much of the night unable to sleep, alternating between reviewing the events in my mind and researching my legal options. I created a detailed timeline of everything that had happened, from the initial Nexus concept through to the live stream disaster, noting dates, participants, and specific statements made. I gathered emails I had forwarded to my personal account and screenshots I had taken of concerning documents. By morning, the story had been picked up by mainstream tech publications. TechCrunch ran an analysis piece titled "Leadership Crisis at GrowthTech, the Live Stream Firing Explained," which included quotes from anonymous GrowthTech employees describing a toxic culture and pattern of credit stealing by executive leadership. The Wall Street Journal's technology section included a brief but pointed piece about unconventional termination practices in Silicon Valley startups that referenced the incident without naming me directly. The article questioned whether such public actions could expose companies to significant legal liability. I received a call from Theodore Anderson, a former professor who had become a trusted mentor. "Ashley, I saw what happened. Before you make any decisions, I would like you to meet with a colleague of mine who specializes in employment law for tech executives." "I am not sure I have the energy for a legal battle," I admitted, exhaustion evident in my voice. "Just talk to her," Theodore urged. "Knowledge is power, especially now." By midday, I had organized all my documentation into clear categories: evidence of my contributions to Nexus instances, of credit being reassigned, financial discrepancies, and the events of the live stream itself. I drafted a professional statement in case any journalists reached out directly, focusing on my commitment to ethical business practices rather than attacking Marcus or GrowthTech. The approach I decided on was strategic rather than reactive. Yes, I had been humiliated, but lashing out would only damage my professional reputation further. Instead, I would proceed methodically, gathering information, consulting experts, and making decisions based on facts rather than emotions. What I did not expect was the call that came the following morning, just as the first rays of sunlight were streaming through my bedroom window. My phone rang at 6:15 a.m. Unknown number. Normally I would have ignored it, but given the circumstances, I answered cautiously. "Hello, this is Ashley Thompson." "Good morning, ma'am. Howard Reynolds here, chairman of GrowthTech Solutions." I sat up straight in bed, instantly alert. In 5 years at the company, I had never received a direct call from the chairman. "Mr. Reynolds," I responded, professional, despite the surreal circumstances. "This is unexpected." "Yes, I imagine it would be," he replied, his tone measured and formal. "I am calling regarding the unfortunate events during yesterday's live stream. The board and I would like to express our concern about how that situation was handled." Was this a courtesy call before legal action? A settlement offer? I chose my words carefully. "I appreciate your concern. It was certainly an unexpected development. Miss Thompson, I would like to meet with you today if possible. There are matters we should discuss in person rather than over the phone." After a moment's consideration, I agreed to meet him at 11 am at his private office downtown, not at GrowthTech headquarters. This gave me time to consult briefly with the lawyer Theodore had recommended and prepare mentally for whatever might come. The building that housed Howard's private office was an elegant high-rise in the financial district, far from the casual tech campus atmosphere of GrowthTech. His assistant, a professionally dressed woman in her 50s, escorted me to a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay. Howard rose when I entered, extending his hand. "Miss Thompson, thank you for coming on such short notice." "Of course," I replied, shaking his hand firmly, despite my internal nervousness. We sat at a polished conference table, where a pitcher of water and glasses had been arranged. Howard studied me for a moment before speaking. "I want to be direct with you. Several board members were watching the quarterly live stream yesterday. What we witnessed was deeply concerning, both in terms of professional conduct and potentially in terms of company governance. This was not the direction I had expected the conversation to take," Howard continued. An emergency board meeting was convened last night to discuss the incident. During that meeting, it came to light that there have been previous complaints about Marcus's management style and decision-making that were not properly escalated to the board. I maintained a neutral expression, though my mind was racing. I see. Miss Thompson, I understand you recently identified some financial discrepancies related to the Nexus project. Could you elaborate on what you found? The question caught me off guard. How did he know about that? Yes, I noticed several expense categories that did not align with our actual development activities, I explained carefully. Consulting fees for companies, I could not identify travel expenses for locations where we had no team members and hardware purchases that never arrived at our department. Howard nodded, making notes on a leather-bound portfolio. And when you brought these concerns to the CFO, Diana dismissed them as coding errors, but her response seemed rehearsed. She discouraged any further inquiry. Howard's expression darkened slightly. I see. Miss Thompson, I must apologize for my own oversight in this matter. As chairman, ultimately the governance of GrowthTech falls under my responsibility. It appears there have been concerning activities happening without proper board visibility. He slid a folder across the table to me. The board would like you to consider presenting your findings directly to us in a special session tomorrow morning. This would include your documentation of the financial discrepancies, any evidence of misrepresentation to the board or investors, and your perspective on the Nexus project development. I opened the folder to find a formal letter from the board requesting my participation, along with a confidentiality agreement. This was not at all what I had expected from this meeting. To be clear, Mr. Reynolds, I was terminated yesterday, rather publicly. Yes, about that, Howard said, leaning forward slightly. The board has serious questions about the circumstances and authority of your termination. Marcus did not consult the board or follow company protocol for executive dismissals. From our perspective, your employment status is currently under review. This was a significant development. I considered my position carefully before responding. I would be willing to present to the board, but I would need certain assurances, I said. First, protection from any potential retaliation. Second, a commitment that my team will not suffer consequences for my cooperation. And third, a guarantee that the information I provide will be used appropriately, not buried. Howard nodded. Those are reasonable conditions. I can have our legal team draw up the necessary documents before tomorrow's meeting. As we discussed the logistics of the board presentation, Howard's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then looked back at me. Marcus is calling. Would you mind if I take this on speakerphone? I think it might be informative for both of us. I nodded, curious about how Marcus would interact with the chairman. Howard pressed the speaker button. Marcus, good morning. Howard, we need to talk about yesterday's live stream situation. Marcus began, his voice carrying the confident tone he typically used with subordinates. I had to make a difficult decision for the good of the company. That employee was misrepresenting our product direction to investors during a critical acquisition period. I see, Howard replied neutrally. And you felt terminating her during a live broadcast was the appropriate approach. Sometimes decisive leadership requires difficult actions, Marcus replied, sounding rehearsed. I stand by my decision and believe the board will understand once I explain the full context. Well, that is interesting timing, Marcus, Howard said calmly, because I happen to be sitting with Miss Thompson right now discussing some concerns the board has about yesterday's events and other matters. The silence that followed was profound. When Marcus finally spoke again, his voice had lost its confident edge. You are with Ashley right now. Yes, we are having a very enlightening conversation about Nexus development, financial reporting, and corporate governance. I could practically hear Marcus's face draining of color through the phone connection. His next words came out strained. I was not aware you were meeting with her. That seems premature before we have discussed the situation internally. The board felt it was important to hear all perspectives directly, Howard replied. We will be seeing you at tomorrow's emergency board meeting, correct? 9 a.m. sharp. Yes, of course. Marcus managed his usual commanding presence completely evaporated. I will be there with all relevant documentation. Excellent. Miss Thompson will also be presenting to the board. I suggest you come prepared to address the various discrepancies we have been discussing. After ending the call, Howard turned to me with the hint of a smile. Well, that was informative. The rest of our meeting focused on preparing for the board presentation. Howard provided insight into which board members would be present and their particular areas of concern. He also mentioned that the company's external auditors had been invited to attend a detail that underscored the seriousness of the situation. Back at my apartment, I spent the evening organizing my documentation and preparing slides for the board presentation. Rachel called to check in. "You will never believe what is happening at the office," she said without preamble. "Bradley has been shredding documents all afternoon. Diana has been in back-to-back closed-door meetings. And Marcus canceled all his appointments and has locked himself in his office with the legal team. The board is asking me to present tomorrow morning," I told her. "About Nexus, the financial issues. Everything." "Holy shit," Rachel breathed. "Ashley, this is huge. This could completely change the narrative of what happened." Maybe I said, not wanting to get my hopes up too high. But at minimum, I will have the chance to present the truth to people who might actually do something about it. I worked late into the night, meticulously organizing my presentation for maximum clarity and impact. I included screenshots, email chains, financial records, and a detailed timeline of the Nexus project from conception to current state. Each slide was factual and professional, without emotional language or accusations. As I finally prepared for bed, I realized that despite the trauma of the public firing, I felt strangely calm. For months I had been swimming against the current of Marcus's manipulation and Bradley's sabotage. Now finally I had the opportunity to present the unvarnished truth to people with the power to act on it. Whatever happened at tomorrow's board meeting would determine not just my future, but potentially the future of GrowthTech itself. With that weighty thought, I finally drifted into an uneasy sleep, Howard's words echoing in my mind. "Good morning, ma'am." The GrowthTech boardroom exuded power with its mahogany table, leather chairs, and panoramic views of the city skyline. At exactly 9 a.m., I sat across from 7 board members, including Howard Reynolds, at the head of the table. 2 representatives from the accounting firm Ernst & Young sat to one side along with GrowthTech's external legal counsel. Marcus arrived last, Bradley trailing behind him like a shadow. The confidence that had characterized his leadership was noticeably diminished. He nodded stiffly to the board members and took his seat without making eye contact with me. Howard opened the meeting with a level tone that nonetheless conveyed the gravity of the situation. "We are here to address serious concerns regarding recent events at GrowthTech, including the public termination of Director Thompson during our quarterly live stream, as well as questions about project attribution and financial reporting related to the Nexus project." Marcus immediately tried to seize control of the narrative. "Before we begin, I would like to explain the context of my actions during the live stream. Ms. Thompson was presenting information that contradicted what we have been sharing with potential acquisition partners." Howard held up a hand, stopping him mid-sentence. "Marcus, we will follow a structured process today. Ms. Thompson will present her documentation first, followed by questions from the board. You will have your opportunity to respond afterward." Marcus's jaw tightened visibly, but he nodded and sat back. I connected my laptop to the presentation system and began methodically walking through the evidence I had compiled. First, the original Nexus concept documents with my name and date stamps. Then the progression of how the project was gradually reattributed to Marcus in both internal and external communications. As you can see from these email chains, I explained highlighting specific messages on the screen. At the directive to remove team attribution came directly from the CEO's office, contrary to our established innovation documentation protocols. The board members took notes and occasionally exchanged glances as I moved to the financial section of my presentation. Here I presented side-by-side comparisons of actual development costs versus reported expenses, identifying over $2 million in discrepancies. These consulting fees were allocated to Nexus development, I explained, displaying a spreadsheet. But when I attempted to contact the vendors, I discovered that 2 of these companies do not actually exist, and the third is registered to an NE address that turns out to be a mail forwarding service in the Cayman Islands. The Ernst & Young representatives leaned forward at this, their expressions darkening. Throughout my presentation, I maintained a professional tone, focusing on facts rather than accusations or emotions. When I finished, the boardroom was silent for several moments. Howard broke the silence. "Thank you, Miss Thompson. That was comprehensive and concerning. Does the board have questions at this time?" For the next 45 minutes, I answered detailed questions from each board member, clarifying technical aspects of Nexus development, explaining reporting structures, and providing additional context for the financial discrepancies. When the questioning concluded, Howard turned to Marcus. "Now, Mr. Evans, we would like to hear your perspective on these matters." Marcus launched into a defense that quickly revealed how unprepared he was to counter the detailed documentation I had presented. There have clearly been some misunderstandings and communication breakdowns. He began, his usual charisma failing him. "As CEO, I provide the vision and direction for all growth tech innovations, including Nexus. The financial matters Ms. Thompson has identified are simply coding errors in our expense allocation system, as our CFO previously explained." Bradley attempted to support Marcus's claims, passing him notes, and occasionally interjecting with explanations that contradicted my evidence. But their efforts backfired when one board member asked a pointed question about the non-existent consulting companies, and Marcus and Bradley gave conflicting answers. After nearly 3 hours of discussion, Howard called for a brief recess. When we reconvened 30 minutes later, the atmosphere in the boardroom had shifted perceptibly. Howard addressed the room with formal gravity. "Based on the information presented today and the recommendation of our external auditors, the board has made several decisions. First, Marcus Evans is being placed on administrative leave, pending a complete investigation into the financial and governance issues raised today. An interim leadership team will be appointed immediately." Marcus started to protest, but Howard continued without acknowledging him. "Second, all communication with potential acquisition partners will be paused until we have clarity on our actual financial position and product roadmap. Third," he turned to me, "Ashley Thompson is hereby reinstated to her position as Director of Product Innovation, with a formal apology from the board for the inappropriate termination and public humiliation she experienced." The room fell silent as the implications of these decisions sank in. Marcus sat frozen, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. Bradley looked physically ill. "Ms. Thompson," Howard continued, "the board would also like to discuss appropriate compensation for the professional damage you have suffered, as well as potentially expanding your role to include oversight of our new corporate ethics and accountability initiatives. We believe your demonstrated commitment to integrity would be valuable in reshaping our company culture." The meeting concluded with the establishment of an investigative committee and the scheduling of follow-up sessions. As people filed out of the boardroom, Howard asked me to stay behind. "That could not have been easy," he said once we were alone. "No," I admitted, "but it was necessary. The company owes you a debt of gratitude for bringing these issues to light, despite the personal cost to you. I hope you will consider staying with GrowthTech as we work to correct our course." 3 weeks later, I walked back into GrowthTech headquarters as an officially reinstated employee. The reception area had been redecorated, the giant portrait of Marcus notably absent. The interim CEO, Janet Barnes, a respected industry veteran brought in by the board, had already begun implementing governance reforms. My team greeted my return with a standing ovation, many of them having feared for their own positions during the uncertainty of the investigation. Jason had preserved all our original Nexus documentation, ensuring the project could continue without disruption. "It is good to have you back," Rachel said, hugging me tightly. "Things are already changing around here." Bradley had been reassigned to a minor role in facilities management, his close association with Marcus's questionable practices making any leadership position untenable. Diana, the CFO, had resigned the day after the board meeting. Rachel had been promoted to Senior Director of Marketing, recognition of her integrity during the troubled period. "The new leadership actually listens," she told me over lunch. Janet asked for a complete audit of attribution across all projects to make sure everyone gets proper credit for their work. Over the following months, I worked with the interim leadership team to rebuild the company culture around transparency and accountability. We implemented new communication policies that ensured appropriate attribution of ideas and innovations. Team contributions were celebrated rather than obscured, and collaboration replaced competition as the operational standard. The investigation ultimately revealed that Marcus and a small circle of executives had been systematically misrepresenting financial information to inflate the company's valuation ahead of the planned acquisition. Criminal charges were being considered by regulatory authorities. As for me, the healing process took time. The public humiliation of being fired on a live stream watched by 50,000 people had left emotional scars that would not disappear overnight. But with each successful project milestone, each positive team interaction, my professional confidence gradually rebuilt itself. 6 months after the infamous live stream, we held another quarterly update, this time with me leading the presentation as part of the executive leadership team. We had over 70,000 viewers, many likely drawn by curiosity after the previous drama. Welcome to GrowthTech's quarterly update. I began standing confidently before the camera. Today, we are excited to share the collaborative innovations our teams have been developing. As I presented Nexus's successful beta launch statistics and introduced team members who had contributed key elements, I realized how far we had come. The company was healthier, our products stronger, and our culture transformed. The experience had taught me profound lessons about workplace integrity, the importance of documentation, and the courage to stand up for what is right, even when facing powerful opposition. Most importantly, I learned that maintaining your dignity and professionalism, even in the face of public humiliation, ultimately speaks volumes about your character. The road had not been easy, but the journey had transformed both me and GrowthTech for the better. Sometimes, standing your ground against workplace injustice does not just protect your own career, it creates ripples that improve conditions for everyone. So let me ask you, have you ever witnessed or experienced workplace injustice that made you question what to do? Share your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more professional journey narratives. And if you know someone facing workplace challenges who might find inspiration in this experience, share this video with them. Remember, documentation is your best defense, and integrity is always the right choice, even when it feels like the hardest path. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you strength and wisdom in your own professional journeys.